It was a sweltering July afternoon in 1994 when Emma and Lily Thompson, identical 16-year-old twins, were last seen walking down the cracked sidewalks of Cedar Ridge. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew each other's business, and yet no one could explain how two lively, popular girls could vanish in broad daylight. Neighbors recalled waving to the girls as they headed toward the local fairgrounds, excited for rides and games, their laughter echoing down the street. Hours later, when the sun began to dip behind the hills, it became clear they never returned home. Parents and relatives were frantic. Calls were made to the police, posters were plastered across the town, and volunteers combed the surrounding woods and abandoned fields. Every place the girls were known to visit was meticulously searched, from the old creek near Maple Lane to the disused barns scattered along the outskirts of town. But every search ended in frustration. No sign of the twins, no footprints, no torn clothing, nothing to hint at what might have happened. The silence of the woods seemed almost mocking, as if it had swallowed the girls whole. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. Some whispered that the girls had run away, bored of small-town life, chasing a boy or some secret adventure. Others feared darker forces, abduction, cults, or even something supernatural. The local sheriff tried to maintain calm, urging people not to jump to conclusions. But Cedar Ridge was a town haunted by history, and decades-old stories of missing children and unexplained disappearances made everyone wary. Fear began to seep into the town's collective consciousness. As the days turned into weeks, the town's once bright summer buzz faded into a tense, watchful quiet. Families avoided the woods, children were told never to wander alone, and every rustle in the trees or shadow passing by a window sparked anxiety. The Thompson family refused to give up hope, yet even they began to feel the gnawing edge of despair. Posters of the girls remained on telephone poles, their smiling faces a cruel reminder that something terrible had occurred. But what exactly, no one could say. By the end of that summer, Cedar Ridge had changed forever. The disappearance of Emma and Lily wasn't just a tragedy. It became a permanent scar on the town's identity. Conversations in the diner, in schools, and at church revolved around the missing twins, and every unexplained sound in the night reignited fear. The twins had vanished so completely that it was as if they had never existed, leaving a lingering question that would haunt Cedar Ridge for decades. Where had they gone, and why had no one seen a thing? 3 decades later, Cedar Ridge had grown quieter, the tragedy of the twins slowly fading from daily conversation, though the memory never truly disappeared. It was on a late summer morning that James Carter, a local historian and amateur explorer, decided to hike the old logging roads that twisted through the outskirts of town. These roads were rarely traveled, overgrown with weeds and thorny vines, and carried the weight of decades of forgotten history. As he moved through the dense forest, the sunlight barely reached the ground, casting twisted shadows that danced with every sway of the trees. That's when he spotted it, the faint outline of a vehicle, partially hidden and almost swallowed by time itself. The truck was old, rusted, and covered in layers of dirt and moss, as if the forest had claimed it as its own. Its tires had long deflated, the metal corroded in jagged patterns, and the windshield was shattered, creating a distorted reflection of the canopy above. James's heart raced as he approached, instinctively feeling that this wasn't just an abandoned vehicle. It was a remnant of something much darker. Kneeling beside the door, he noticed the faded paint and an old license plate barely clinging to the frame, its numbers unreadable. Yet inside, something caught his eye, a weathered glove compartment, slightly ajar, hinting at secrets long buried and waiting to be discovered. Inside the truck, James found a collection of oddities that immediately made his pulse quicken. Among broken sunglasses, a cracked thermos, and rusted tools, there lay a small, leather-bound notebook. Its pages were yellowed and brittle, the ink faded but still legible in patches. The handwriting was unmistakably young, yet urgent, filled with sketches, maps, and cryptic messages that seemed to hint at a secret only the twins knew. Each scribble suggested that whoever had left this truck had been fleeing something, or someone. The forest around him seemed to grow quieter, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath, guarding the secrets contained within that small truck. As he flipped through the notebook, James discovered entries that hinted at late-night adventures, hidden places in the woods, and a mine that nobody in town had been allowed to explore for decades. The twins had written about something they had found, something that frightened them, though the pages stopped abruptly, leaving the story incomplete. The realization hit James like a cold wave. The truck wasn't just a forgotten relic, it was a breadcrumb left behind in a much larger, sinister puzzle. Someone had intentionally left it there, or perhaps abandoned it in panic, But either way, it was a direct link to the twins' mysterious disappearance. With the truck's discovery, old rumors began to resurface. Townsfolk who had once whispered of strange lights near the mines or unusual sounds in the woods suddenly found new courage to share their memories. Carter could feel the weight of decades pressing down on him as he traced every clue in the notebook, realizing that the twins' story wasn't over. It had merely been paused, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to follow the trail. The discovery of the forgotten pickup opened a door to the past, a door that had been sealed for 31 years, and behind it lay secrets that would challenge everything Cedar Ridge thought it knew about those fateful summer days. Inside the truck, tucked beneath layers of dust and decades of neglect, James Carter discovered more than just the notebook. At the back, partially hidden under old tarps and rusted tools, lay a bundle of maps and a small, ornate key. The key was engraved with Mine 7, a name that immediately sent chills down James's spine. The maps, yellowed and creased, depicted the surrounding forest with markings that didn't appear on any official town records, secret trails, hidden entrances, and symbols that seemed almost like warnings. Every detail suggested that the twins had been far more aware of the dangers around them than anyone had ever realized. As James carefully examined the notebook again, he noticed patterns in the handwriting, entries that alternated between casual diary notes and desperate warnings. The twins had written about strange noises echoing through the woods, shadows that moved just beyond their sight, and feelings of being watched. Sketches of the mine appeared repeatedly, alongside depictions of a figure that was never fully drawn, always lurking in corners, always obscured. James realized these weren't just idle doodles of bored teenagers. They were warnings, frantic attempts to document something horrifying that they had stumbled upon. The deeper James delved into the notebook, the more he sensed that the twins had been onto something big, something dangerous. Notes referenced secret passages, hidden chambers, and coded messages carved into the walls of Mine 7. The twins wrote about hearing voices, low whispers that seemed to come from inside the earth itself. Each entry ended abruptly, mid-thought, as if someone, or something, had interrupted their writings. It was as though the notebook had captured the last pieces of the twins' journey, frozen in time, waiting for someone brave enough to piece it together. James realized that the cabin, or the space inside the truck where the notebook and maps were hidden, had been more than a hiding spot. It was a record of fear and survival, left behind in haste. The items were carefully arranged, almost as if the twins had wanted someone to find them, someone who could understand what had happened and perhaps uncover the truth. Each page, each sketch, each cryptic line was a breadcrumb leading directly to Mine 7. But the more James read, the heavier the sense of dread became. The twins had known that discovering the mine was dangerous, yet they had been drawn there anyway, compelled by curiosity, courage, or perhaps something else entirely. As James traced the paths outlined in the maps and studied the entries in the notebook, he felt the weight of history pressing in around him. Every line hinted at a past that the town of Cedar Ridge had tried to bury. Each sketch suggested a story of courage, terror, and secrets too dark to speak aloud. The notebook was more than a record. It was a puzzle, a warning, and a testament to the twins' bravery. And with the key to Mine 7 in his hand, James knew that he was about to step into a world that had been hidden for over 3 decades, a world that held answers, and perhaps horrors, beyond anything the town had ever imagined. The entrance to Mine 7 had been sealed for decades, its rusted gate barely hanging on rusty hinges, warning signs long faded by weather and neglect. When James Carter arrived with the key in his hand, the air around him seemed to thrum with tension, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Stepping through the narrow opening, his flashlight beam cut through the thick darkness, revealing jagged walls and remnants of old mining equipment left to decay. The deeper he ventured, the colder and more oppressive the air became, carrying with it a damp, metallic scent that clung to his clothes and skin. As he descended further, James noticed the walls were not just scarred from mining. They were etched with strange symbols and markings that looked intentional, almost ritualistic. Some were faint, carved decades ago, while others seemed newer, as if someone had returned long after the mine was abandoned. The echoes of his footsteps seemed unnaturally loud in the tunnels, bouncing off the stone in ways that made him question whether he was truly alone. Every turn of the passage brought new signs that someone, or something, had been living here, leaving traces of their presence carefully hidden from the outside world. Eventually, James stumbled upon a small chamber, a room that had somehow remained untouched by time. Inside were remnants of habitation, makeshift bedding, an old lantern, and a few rusted cans of food. Dust covered everything, yet it was clear that these items had been deliberately arranged. On the walls were scribbled warnings, desperate messages, and even sketches resembling those in the twins' notebook. It was the chilling realization that someone had survived, or at least tried to, within these tunnels for years. The mine was not just abandoned, it had been a secret world, a place where time seemed frozen, and danger had left its invisible fingerprints everywhere. As James explored further, he found narrow side passages that twisted unpredictably, some ending in dead ends, others opening into larger caverns. Strange noises echoed, faint drips of water, a distant scraping, and sometimes, a soft whisper that seemed too rhythmic to be random. Every instinct in his body screamed for him to turn back, but the key in his hand and the notebook in his bag pulled him forward. The twins' presence was palpable. It was as if the walls themselves remembered them, as if the mine held a memory of their last moments inside. Each step deeper into the tunnels was a step into the unknown, a step that brought James closer to the truth, but also closer to whatever danger had claimed the twins so long ago. It wasn't just the physical layout of Mine 7 that unnerved him. It was the sense of being watched, the feeling that every shadow could conceal something alive, something patient. The mine seemed to breathe around him, narrowing and widening, twisting in ways that made it impossible to guess what lay ahead. Rusted mining carts lay abandoned on tracks that led to darkness, and old tools were scattered as if dropped in a sudden rush. Every detail reinforced the idea that the mine held secrets far darker than anyone had imagined, secrets that had remained hidden for decades, waiting for someone to uncover them. James realized that Mine 7 was more than just a place. It was a living, breathing mystery, one that had swallowed the twins and refused to release its hold on Cedar Ridge. As James Carter moved cautiously through the dimly lit chamber, his flashlight caught something partially buried beneath a mound of dirt and fallen rocks. At first, it seemed like nothing more than debris, but as he brushed away the years of neglect, a wooden box appeared, its corners worn and cracked. Heart pounding, he pried it open and froze. Inside were photographs, papers, and a small tape recorder, all seemingly untouched for decades. The photos were what made him shiver the most, images of Emma and Lily smiling in the mine, their eyes wide with excitement, unaware that a dark presence lingered just beyond the frame in every picture. The recorder hummed faintly when James dusted it off, and with trembling hands, he pressed play. Whispers filled the chamber, soft but urgent, interspersed with frantic pleas for help. The twins' voices were unmistakable, panicked, scared, but determined. They spoke of shadows moving in the corners, voices calling them deeper into the tunnels, and glimpses of a figure that seemed to watch from every crevice. Every word painted a horrifying picture of what had transpired after they vanished, a story that had remained hidden for 31 long years, waiting to be heard. Among the papers were cryptic notes that resembled journal entries, describing the twins' attempts to map the tunnels and document their discoveries. They had written about strange symbols etched into the walls, hidden compartments within the mine, and evidence that someone had been using the tunnels for secretive and sinister purposes. The more James read, the clearer it became that the twins hadn't been wandering aimlessly. They had been investigating something far larger than themselves, something that someone wanted to remain buried forever. The notebook, the photos, and the recordings together formed a puzzle, one that hinted at a conspiracy hidden beneath the very ground the town was built on. James noticed one photograph in particular that made his stomach tighten. The shadowy figure in the background was taller than any normal human, with indistinct features, always lurking just out of reach, and yet unmistakably watching the twins. In some pictures, it appeared closer, almost interacting with the girls without them noticing. The detail was subtle, but chilling. The figure seemed to be aware of every move the twins made, tracking them through the tunnels with an unsettling intelligence. The box wasn't just evidence of the twins' presence, it was proof that they had been followed, hunted even, by something calculating and patient. The deeper James delved into the hidden evidence, the more the weight of the discovery pressed down on him. Every photograph, every note, every whisper from the tape recorder hinted at a terrifying reality. The twins had stumbled upon something no one was supposed to see, and their disappearance was far from a random tragedy. The mine, the shadows, and the secrets contained within the hidden box were all connected, forming a story of fear, danger, and unrelenting suspense. It was clear that the abandoned pickup had been the first clue, a breadcrumb leading to a much larger truth, a truth that Cedar Ridge had buried for decades, and one that James was now unraveling piece by piece. As James Carter continued to sift through the twins' notes, photographs, and recordings, he began to see patterns that linked their disappearance to other events in Cedar Ridge's shadowed history. Long-forgotten newspaper clippings revealed a chilling pattern. Over the decades, several young people had vanished near the mines, leaving behind no trace. Each case was dismissed as accidental or as runaway incidents, but James noticed the similarities: proximity to the same remote woods, the timing of their disappearances, and the eerie way no evidence was ever found. The town's seemingly sleepy streets had been hiding something far more sinister than anyone had dared to imagine. James sought out longtime residents, hoping to piece together stories that had been whispered behind closed doors. What he uncovered was disturbing: rumors of secret gatherings, unexplained sounds in the forest, and figures seen moving silently along the mine trails at night. Elders spoke of families who had abruptly moved away, leaving homes abandoned and memories buried. Even those who had stayed seemed reluctant to speak openly, casting nervous glances as if afraid that the mine itself could hear them. The twins' notebooks had not been wrong. They were secrets the town had been desperate to keep hidden, and the mine was at the heart of them. Digging through archived town records, James discovered that influential members of Cedar Ridge had once owned stakes in the mining operations. Some documents suggested that these same people had manipulated local authorities, silencing investigations into unexplained disappearances. Over the years, patterns emerged of missing children coinciding with shifts in power or financial gain. It became apparent that the mine had not only been a physical location of terror but also a tool for concealment, a place where dark deeds could occur beyond the scrutiny of outsiders. Every line of evidence pointed toward a systematic cover-up that had been maintained for decades. The more James learned, the more he understood why the twins had vanished without a trace. Emma and Lily had unwittingly stumbled upon this buried history, discovering evidence that the town's leaders had gone to great lengths to keep hidden. Their journal entries hinted at their growing fear, a sense that they were being followed, watched, and silenced. It was a story of courage against an invisible enemy, a tale of innocence caught in the grip of power and secrecy. Each revelation painted Cedar Ridge in a new, darker light, revealing the town as a place where appearances were deceiving and danger could lurk behind every friendly smile. By connecting the dots between the twins' disappearance and the town's long-forgotten secrets, James realized the magnitude of what he had uncovered. This wasn't just a story about two missing girls. It was about decades of corruption, fear, and unspeakable acts hidden beneath the quiet streets and picturesque landscapes of Cedar Ridge. The town's history itself seemed tainted, each unspoken memory a warning to anyone who dared dig too deeply. As he pieced together the fragments of the past, the reality became clear. The twins' story was only one thread in a tapestry of darkness that had remained untouched for far too long. James Carter's investigation reached a terrifying climax when he managed to track down Harold Green, a reclusive former miner who had lived in the shadows of Cedar Ridge for decades. The old man had avoided the public eye, his presence barely noted in town records, but his knowledge of the mine was unparalleled. When James approached him cautiously, Harold's eyes narrowed, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Finally, he whispered, his voice trembling, that he knew what had happened to the twins and why the town had chosen to forget. The revelation hit James like a cold wave. Emma and Lily had been closer to uncovering the truth than anyone had imagined. Harold recounted the chilling story of the mine's secret use, not just for mining, but as a hidden hub for crimes that the town's most influential families had orchestrated over decades. Children and teenagers had gone missing before, some never to be seen again, all because they had stumbled upon activities that certain people wanted buried. The twins had unknowingly discovered evidence that could expose this network, documenting clues in their notebooks, hiding photographs, and leaving the pickup as a breadcrumb trail. They had walked straight into a danger that was as calculated as it was ruthless. The old miner's hands shook as he described the last known movements of the twins. According to him, they had ventured deep into Mine 7, following passages that led to chambers few had ever seen. There, they found incriminating documents, symbols, and evidence of the town's secretive society. But they hadn't escaped undetected. Someone had been tracking them, manipulating shadows, and controlling the mine's hidden corridors. The twins' efforts to document everything were courageous, but tragically, they had also made them targets. The pickup had been abandoned when the perpetrators realized they had been noticed, a desperate attempt to erase any trail that could lead back to the mine. James felt a chill crawl up his spine as Harold described the twins' courage under unimaginable fear. Despite knowing the danger, Emma and Lily had tried to leave signs for anyone who might follow, hiding notes and sketches in places they believed were safe. Their survival instincts had guided them to the truck, their final attempt to communicate with the outside world. Harold revealed that even decades later, some of the town's secretive figures were still alive, their influence keeping the full truth buried. It became horrifyingly clear that the twins' story was more than a mystery. It was a warning, a living testament to the lengths people would go to protect dark secrets. As James listened, he realized the full weight of what he had uncovered. The mine, the abandoned pickup, the hidden journals, and the recordings were all pieces of a puzzle that revealed a terrifying truth. Cedar Ridge's quiet streets hid decades of corruption, fear, and crime, and the twins had been caught in the crosshairs of a story much larger than themselves. Every clue he uncovered drew him deeper into the town's shadowy past, and it became evident that revealing the truth would come at a cost. The twins' disappearance was no accident. It was the result of a calculated, sinister plan, and the shadows of Mine 7 still lingered, waiting for anyone bold, or foolish, enough to uncover them. As James Carter stepped back from the mine, the shadows seemed to shift behind him, almost alive, as if the tunnels themselves were watching. He held the twins' notebook tightly, the photographs pressed to his chest, and realized that Cedar Ridge would never be the same. The truth he had uncovered was horrifying, yes, but it was only part of a story that the town had tried for decades to bury. Emma and Lily's courage had shone a light into the darkness, yet the shadows of Mine 7 remained, waiting silently for the next secret to be uncovered. Even now, the forest around the old logging roads whispered with the memory of the twins, their laughter and fear frozen in time, their footsteps imprinted in places no one could see. The pickup, rusted and abandoned, had led James to answers, but it also raised more questions. How many others had vanished in these tunnels? How deep did the town's secrets go? And most terrifying of all, could the shadows still be watching? As he drove away from Cedar Ridge, James knew that some truths were too dangerous to be fully revealed, that some darkness refuses to be tamed. But the twins' story, their bravery, their discoveries, their ultimate fate, would never be forgotten. Somewhere, buried in the earth, in the silent halls of Mine 7, their story still waits, hidden but alive, whispering warnings to anyone curious enough, or foolish enough, to follow in their footsteps. And so, the mystery endures. The town sleeps, unaware of what lies beneath. The mine waits, the shadows wait, and the twins, perhaps they are still out there, watching, warning, or calling to those who dare to search for the truth. Because some secrets are not meant to be buried, and some stories refuse to end.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.